She couldn't be older than 20, with honey blonde hair pulled back in a practical braid and eyes the color of a summer sky. Her simple blue calico dress was covered by a stained apron, and she carried a basin of water. "Where am I?" he managed, his throat desert dry. "My clinic, or what passes for one in these parts." She set the basin down and helped him take a sip of water. "Zara Calloway. Most folks around here call me Doc, though I've no formal training, just what I learned from my father in his medical books." "Yates Ashton," he studied her face. "You saved my life." "That remains to be seen." "The bullet missed anything vital, but you've lost a lot of blood and infection's still a risk." She pressed a cool hand to his forehead. "You've got a fever. Who shot you, Mr. Ashton?" "Occupational hazard," he muttered. "Bounty hunter then," she said, not a question. "Or outlaw, though I'm guessing the former, since most outlaws don't ride quality horses with U.S. Marshal saddle stamps." Despite his pain, Yates found himself almost smiling. "Observant. Have to be out here." She turned away to prepare a bitter-smelling concoction. "Drink this. It'll help with the fever and pain." As she tended to him, Yates noticed the absence of a wedding band. A young, unmarried woman living alone on the frontier was unusual and dangerous, yet here she was, fearlessly tending to a strange, wounded man. "Where's your family?" he asked after swallowing the vile medicine. A shadow crossed her face. "Gone. Cholera took my parents 3 years ago. I stayed to continue my father's work. People need medical care out here." Alone, the word carried more judgment than he'd intended. Her eyes flashed. "Not everyone believes they need to face the world alone, Mr. Ashton. Some of us understand that surviving this frontier means helping each other, not isolating ourselves." She stood abruptly. "Rest now. Your body needs it." Yates watched her walk away, wondering how she'd read his philosophy so clearly. Perhaps it was written on his face as plainly as his exhaustion. As sleep pulled him under, he wondered what it would be like to believe as she did. That connection, not isolation, was the key to frontier survival. The next morning, Yates awoke to find Zara checking his bandages, her touch gentle despite her clear disapproval of him. "Fever's down," she said. "You might live after all." "Sorry to disappoint," he quipped. This earned him a ghost of a smile. "Who says I'm disappointed? I've invested too much time in you already to have you die." A pounding at the door interrupted them. Zara tensed, immediately reaching for a shotgun propped against the wall. "Dr. Calloway, it's Sheriff Mills. Got wounded men here from an ambush on the Butterfield stage." Zara set down the shotgun and hurried to the door. What followed was a whirlwind of activity as 2 injured men were brought in. One had a bullet in his shoulder, the other a broken leg and lacerations. Yates watched from his bed as Zara transformed, her movements confident and precise as she extracted the bullet and set the broken bone. "Daniel's gang," the stage guard gasped as Zara stitched his wound. 5 of them took the strongbox and headed north. Yates recognized the name. The Daniels gang had been terrorizing the territory for months, the very outlaws he'd been tracking when one of their scouts had shot him from behind. "Did you see a man with a scar from his eye to his chin?" Yates asked, his voice carrying across the small cabin. The guard looked over. "Yeah, leader seemed to be taking orders from him." "Cyrus Daniels." Yates had been right, the notorious outlaw was back in the territory. After the sheriff and his men left, Zara returned to Yates' bedside, her apron now stained with fresh blood. "You're tracking the Daniels gang." "Was," Yates corrected, gesturing to his wound. "They've killed 12 people in the last month, stagecoach robberies, train heists." She hesitated. "They raided the general store in town last week, shot the owner when he couldn't open the safe fast enough. His wife is expecting their first child next month." The information settled heavily on Yates. He'd been hunting Daniels for the reward, but Zara saw the human cost behind each crime. He found himself studying her face in the lantern light, noting the determination in her eyes and the compassionate set of her mouth. This woman faced the brutal realities of frontier life daily, yet remained unbroken by them. "How long until I can ride?" he asked. 2 weeks at minimum before you should even think about sitting a horse." Yates cursed under his breath. By then Daniels would be long gone. "You need help," Zara said firmly. 2 weeks of rest, proper meals, and someone changing those bandages. "I don't usually stay in one place that long." "Well, Mr. Ashton, unless you want that wound to fester and kill you, you'll make an exception." She crossed her arms, unyielding. Besides, where else would you go? He had no answer for that. The truth was, he had no one waiting for him, no place to call home, just endless trails and the next bounty. Fine, he conceded. 2 weeks. What began as reluctant convalescence gradually transformed over the following days. Zara proved to be not only skilled but engaging company. Between treating local patients, she told Yates stories of growing up in the territory, of her father teaching her medicine and her mother teaching her to shoot. She believed women out here needed to protect themselves, Zara explained one evening as she changed his bandages. Said a shotgun was more reliable than a husband. Smart woman, Yates replied. Though you seem to have both the shotgun and suitors. That rancher who brought his injured hand in yesterday was clearly more interested in you than medical attention. Zara laughed, the sound warming the cabin more effectively than the crackling fire. Zachary Wilson has been finding injuries since I took over my father's practice. He's harmless. He looked at you like a starving man eyeing a steak. And how would you know what that looks like? She challenged, her eyes meeting his. You barely look at me at all. The observation caught Yates off guard. Had he been avoiding looking at her? Perhaps, because when he did, something dangerous stirred within him, something he'd thought long dead after years of solitude. I see more than you think, he said quietly. Their eyes held for a moment too long before she turned away. Your wound is healing well. Another week and you might actually keep that promise to survive. As days passed, Yates found himself slowly integrating into Zara's routine. Though still confined to bed most of the time, he began helping as he could, grinding herbs for her medicines, organizing supplies, even assisting with simple treatments when she needed an extra hand. He learned that the entire settlement depended on her, traveling miles through harsh conditions to reach her door. And though he never said it aloud, Yates began to admire her, not just for her skills or beauty, but for her unwavering belief that people were worth saving, worth connecting with, despite the dangers of frontier life. On the 10th day of his recovery, as a late winter storm howled outside, Zara returned from a difficult birth in town, exhausted and cold. Yates had managed to prepare a simple stew, hobbling around the cabin on a makeshift crutch. You shouldn't be up, she scolded, but the relief in her eyes betrayed her gratitude. Thought you might be hungry. He helped her out of her snow-covered coat. How's the mother? Both she and the baby girl are doing well. Zara sank into a chair, allowing Yates to serve her for once. It was touch and go for a while, breech birth. As they ate together, Yates noticed how the firelight caught in her hair, turning the honey-blonde strands to gold. When had he started noticing such things? Tell me about your life before becoming a bounty hunter, she said suddenly, breaking their comfortable silence. Yates stiffened. Not much to tell. Everyone has a story, Yates. The use of his first name, rare from her lips, loosened something in him. I was a regular cowhand on the Bar S Ranch in Texas. Good at breaking horses, better with a gun. When the Reeves gang hit our cattle drive, they killed everyone but me. He stared into his bowl. I tracked them down one by one. Found I had a talent for hunting men. And a taste for vengeance, she added softly. Justice, he corrected, but without conviction. Is that why you hunt alone, fear of losing more people? His head snapped up. I hunt alone because it's simpler. Simpler isn't always better. She reached across the table, her hand coming to rest atop his. Loneliness is a different kind of death, Yates. A slower one. Her touch sent warmth through him that had nothing to do with his healing wound. Before he could respond, frantic pounding shook the door. Doc Calloway, please. Zara rushed to open it, revealing a teenage boy, breathless and terrified. It's Pa, a mining accident, his legs crushed bad. Where is he? At home, couldn't move him. Ma sent me to fetch you. Let me get my bag, Zara turned, already gathering supplies. The Coleman place is 5 miles out, the boy added. Through Cougar Pass. Yates stood, leaning on his crutch. You can't go alone through the pass at night in a snowstorm. I don't have a choice, she secured her medical bag. Mister. Coleman will bleed to death by morning. Then I'm going with you. You can barely walk. I can ride, he insisted, and shoot. The pass has been known for mountain lion attacks, especially in winter when game is scarce. Their eyes locked in silent battle until Zara relented. Fine, but you follow my lead. Minutes later they were on horseback, Yates gritting his teeth against the pain in his side as they rode through the blizzard. The journey was treacherous, visibility poor in the swirling snow. Halfway through the pass, Rusty suddenly reared, nearly unseating Yates. "Mountain lion," the boy screamed, pointing to a shadowy figure on a nearby ledge. Yates drew his revolver as the big cat launched itself toward Zara's horse. He fired twice in rapid succession, the second shot finding its mark. The mountain lion fell mid-leap, crashing into the snow. Zara's wide eyes found his across the narrow trail. "Thank you," she mouthed, her breath a cloud in the frigid air. By the time they reached the Coleman homestead, Yates' wound had reopened, blood seeping through his bandages. While Zara worked to save the miner's leg, Yates collapsed in a chair, pressing a cloth to his side. Hours later, with the miner stabilized and dawn breaking outside, Zara finally turned her attention to Yates. "You've ruined all my good work," she chided, though there was no real anger in her voice as she rebandaged his wound. "Worth it," he managed, pale from blood loss. "You risked your life to protect me." Her voice was quiet, intimate in the early morning light. "You risked yours to save him," Yates countered, nodding toward the sleeping miner. "That's different, it's my calling." "Maybe," Yates hesitated, the words strange on his tongue. "Maybe protecting you is becoming mine." The confession hung between them, unexpected and transformative. Before either could speak further, Mrs. Coleman appeared with coffee and gratitude, the moment passing like a dream. The ride back to Zara's cabin was slower, the storm having passed and left a pristine white landscape in its wake. They spoke little, but something had shifted between them, a fragile bridge across the philosophical divide that separated them. That night, as Zara checked his reopened wound, Yates caught her hand. "I was wrong," he said simply. "About what?" "About survival out here. I thought the key was staying disconnected, unattached, but watching you," he struggled to find the words. "The way you give of yourself to this community, how they rally around you in return, it's a different kind of strength than what I've been living by." Zara's eyes softened. "It takes courage to admit when your worldview needs adjusting." "I've never lacked for courage," Yates said with a hint of his usual confidence. "Just wisdom, perhaps." Her laughter warmed him more than any medicine could have. The following morning, their newfound peace shattered with the arrival of Sheriff Mills, his expression grave. "Daniel's gang hit the bank in Silverstone yesterday, killed 3 people, including a child." He removed his hat, turning it in his hands. "There's more. They left a message, said they're coming for the bounty hunter who's been tracking them. Seems they've learned you're here, Ashton." Zara paled, "Coming here to Zephyr Creek. Word is they'll hit the town in 2 days when the payroll for the mine comes through. I've telegraphed for help, but the nearest marshal's office is 4 days' ride," Yates finished, already calculating. "How many men can you deputize?" "Maybe 5 with any shooting experience." Against Daniels and his crew of killers, the sheriff left the grim math unspoken. After Mills left, Zara turned to Yates, fear and determination warring in her eyes. "You have to leave tonight. They want you, not the town. If I leave, they'll still hit the payroll, and they'll burn this town to the ground out of spite." Yates stood carefully, testing his strength. "I brought this to your doorstep. I won't run from it." "You're still healing. You can barely stay on your feet for an hour." "Then I'll fight sitting down," he said with grim humor. Zara pressed her palms against his chest, as if she could physically hold him back from danger. "Don't you understand? I've spent 2 weeks keeping you alive. I can't watch you throw that away." "I'm not throwing anything away," he covered her hands with his own. "For the first time in years, I'm fighting for something that matters, not just a bounty." The realization struck them both simultaneously. Whatever had been growing between them, this fragile, unexpected connection, now faced a deadly test. The next day passed in a flurry of preparation. The town mobilized under Sheriff Mills's direction, with women and children sent to safety in outlying farms. Buildings were fortified, ammunition distributed, and lookouts posted. Yates, despite his injury, became the center of their defensive strategy, his experience hunting outlaws proving invaluable. By nightfall, the tension in town was palpable as they waited for what morning would bring. In the quiet of her cabin, Zara prepared additional medical supplies, her movements betraying her anxiety. Yates watched her from the doorway, struck by how quickly she had become essential to him. "You should have gone with the other women," he said softly. "My place is here. People will be hurt tomorrow." She continued organizing bandages, not meeting his eyes. "Besides, I'm probably the second best shot in town after you." Zara, he crossed to her, gently turning her to face him. If something happens to me tomorrow. Don't, her voice broke on the word, her composure finally cracking. Listen to me, his hands framed her face, thumbs brushing away tears she hadn't realized were falling. These past 2 weeks, you've shown me what I've been missing all these years. Not just companionship, but purpose beyond the next bounty, a reason to come back alive. Yates, her hands clutched his wrists, anchoring herself. I know the timing is terrible, he continued, a wry smile touching his lips. Standing on the edge of a gunfight isn't how I pictured this, but if I die tomorrow without telling you that I've fallen in love with you, I'd never rest easy. The confession hung between them, honest and raw. Zara's eyes widened, searching his face for any sign of insincerity and finding none. You promised me, she whispered fiercely. When I pulled that bullet from your side, you promised me you wouldn't die. I remember, his smile deepened. I believe my exact words were that if you saved my life, my heart was yours in return. I meant it then as a debt. I mean it now as a gift, freely given. In answer, Zara rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was gentle at first, then hungry with the urgency of uncertain tomorrows. When they finally parted, breathless, she rested her forehead against his chest. Come back to me, she murmured. Whatever happens tomorrow, promise me you'll come back. Wild horses couldn't keep me away, he vowed, holding her close as the night deepened around them. Dawn broke cold and clear over Zephyr Creek. Yates took position in the hayloft of the livery stable, which offered a clear view of the main street. His wound ached, but his hands were steady on his rifle. Sheriff Mills and 3 deputies were positioned strategically throughout the town, while Zara waited in the doctor's office, ready to treat casualties. The town held its breath in the eerie silence of false peace. Just after 9 o'clock they appeared, 7 riders moving slowly down the main street, Cyrus Daniels identifiable by the prominent scar on his face. They stopped before the bank, seemingly confident in their superiority. We know you're here, Ashton, Daniels called out. Show yourself, and maybe we'll let these fine folks live. Yates remained silent, watching through his rifle sight. Have it your way, Daniels shrugged, nodding to his men. Burn it down. The outlaws moved to separate positions, and the shooting began. Yates took down 2 men in quick succession before they realized where the shots were coming from. Return fire splintered the wood around him as he ducked for cover. The battle erupted across town, gunshots echoing between buildings. Sheriff Mills and his deputies fought bravely, but they were outmatched. 1 deputy fell, then another. Yates continued firing from his position until a bullet tore through the loft floor near his head. Looking down, he saw Daniels himself entering the stable below, gun drawn. Come on down, bounty hunter. Let's settle this man to man. Yates weighed his options. His position was compromised, and the fighting in the street sounded like it was turning against the townspeople. Making his decision, he called down, just you and me, Daniels. Send your men away from the doctor's office, or no deal. There was a pause, then Daniels' voice. Boys, leave the doc's place alone. This is between me and Ashton. Yates descended the ladder slowly, rifle left behind, relying on the revolver at his hip. His wounds screamed in protest with each movement. At the bottom he faced Cyrus Daniels, the man he'd been hunting for weeks. Heard you've been comfortable, hold up with that pretty doctor, Daniels sneered. Shame to cut your recovery short. Better men than you have tried, Yates replied evenly. Why'd you kill that child in Silverstone? He was no threat to you. Something ugly twisted in Daniels' face. Witnesses are witnesses, no matter their size. The casual cruelty hardened Yates' resolve. This man represented everything that made the frontier dangerous, not just lawlessness, but heartless disregard for human life. Shall we? Daniels' hand hovered near his gun. The world narrowed to the space between them. Yates felt eerily calm, Zara's face clear in his mind. When Daniels made his move, Yates was faster despite his injury. 2 shots rang out almost simultaneously. Searing pain tore through Yates' shoulder as Daniels' bullet found its mark, but the outlaw's shot went wide. Yates' bullet, however, struck true, hitting Daniels in the chest. The outlaw staggered backward, disbelief etched on his scarred face before he collapsed. Clutching his bleeding shoulder, Yates staggered to the stable doors. Outside, the remaining outlaws, seeing their leader fall, lost heart. One was already down, another surrendering to Sheriff Mills. As Yates stepped into the sunlight, his vision swam. He dimly registered shouts of victory, then alarm as he stumbled to his knees. Through the gathering darkness, he saw Zara running toward him, her face a mask of fear. "Stay with me," she commanded, pressing something against his wound. "Don't you dare break your promise now." Her voice faded as unconsciousness claimed him. Yates drifted through darkness, occasionally surfacing to fragments of reality, Zara's voice, the sting of antiseptic, cool cloths on his forehead. Each time he fought to stay, and each time the darkness pulled him back under. Until finally he opened his eyes to find sunlight streaming through familiar windows. He was back in Zara's cabin, in what he now thought of as his bed. Turning his head, he found her asleep in a chair beside him, her hand loosely holding his. "Zara," he whispered, his throat parched. She woke instantly, relief flooding her tired features. "You're back." "How long?" "3 days," she helped him sip water. "The bullet nicked an artery." "You almost bled out before I could repair it." Her voice caught. "I thought I was going to lose you." "Promised you my heart," he reminded her weakly. "Can't give it if I'm dead." Tears filled her eyes as she smiled. "The town considers you quite the hero. Sheriff Mills is holding the reward money for you. What's left of the Daniels gang is locked up awaiting the federal marshal." "And you?" Yates asked, suddenly uncertain, now that the danger's past. She cut him off with a gentle kiss. "I consider you mine, Yates Ashton, if you still want to be." "I meant what I said before the fight. I love you, Zara Calloway. These past weeks have shown me what I've been missing all these years on the trail alone." "And what's that?" she asked, though her eyes said she already knew. "A home, someone to come back to, a purpose beyond the next bounty." He squeezed her hand. "I'm done with that life. If you'll have me, I'd like to stay, build something here with you." Tears spilled freely down her cheeks now. "I've been alone too long as well, helping others but keeping my heart guarded, until a half-dead bounty hunter fell off his horse at my doorstep." "Lucky for me," he smiled. "Lucky for us both," she corrected. 3 months later, as spring painted the Colorado foothills with wildflowers, Yates stood nervously before the town's small church. His new suit felt stiff, his recently trimmed hair unfamiliar. Sheriff Mills, now a good friend, stood beside him as best man. "Steady, son," Mills murmured, noting Yates' anxious adjustments to his tie. "She'll be here." "Not having second thoughts," Yates clarified. "Just want everything to be perfect for her." When the music began and the church doors opened, all anxiety fled. Zara stood framed in the doorway, radiant in a simple white dress, her honey blonde hair crowned with wildflowers. As she walked toward him on Mayor Callahan's arm, Yates felt his chest tighten with emotion. She had saved more than his life that snowy day. She had saved his soul, showing him that the frontier's harshness could be balanced by love's warmth. The ceremony passed in a blur, though he would forever remember the moment they were pronounced husband and wife, and the cheer that went up from the townspeople who had come to embrace him as one of their own. At the reception held in the town square under spring sunshine, Yates pulled his new wife away for a moment of privacy behind the gazebo. "Happy Mrs. Ashton?" he asked, still marveling at how naturally the name suited her. Deliriously, she confirmed, her arms encircling his neck. "Though I'll still be Dr. Calloway professionally. The town knows me that way." "As long as you're my wife at home, you can be whoever you want in town." He kissed her deeply, then pulled back with a boyish grin. "I have something for you." From his pocket he produced a folded deed. "What's this?" she asked, opening it. "The property adjacent to your cabin, 10 acres with good water and timber." His eyes shone with excitement. "Room to expand your clinic, maybe build a proper hospital someday, and," he hesitated, suddenly shy, "room for a family when we're ready." Zara's eyes welled with tears as she looked from the deed to her husband's face. "You remembered. That you wanted to expand your practice, of course." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Your dreams are my dreams now." "Our dreams," she corrected, pressing her lips to his. "Our future." As they rejoined their celebration, Yates Ashton reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From a solitary bounty hunter convinced the frontier was no place for love, to a man surrounded by community, with a wife who had healed not just his wounds, but his very understanding of what it meant to truly live. He had promised her his heart in return for saving his life, never imagining how completely she would claim it, or how willingly he would surrender it. In her love he had found not weakness, but the greatest strength he had ever known. The frontier remained as dangerous and unpredictable as ever, but facing it together, they had found something precious and rare, a love as vast as the western sky, and a home wherever they stood side by side.